Hey guys, welcome to the CG Spectrum livestream. This is a special livestream that we're doing specifically about the KitBash Minerva challenge. My name's Daniel Hourigan. I'm the head of visual effects at CG Spectrum. We're an online school who specialise in teaching people how to learn visual effects tools and get into the industry. Some of you may have watched my streams in the past. It's been quite a while since I've done one. I'm a little bit nervous, but it's good to be back. It's good, it's good to be here again. I miss doing these. So yeah, as I mentioned, today is a special live stream all about the Minerva challenge from KitBash3D. A little bit about myself. I'm a Houdini artist. I've worked in visual effects and 3D animation for, I think I was counting 16 or 17 years now. And I teach now predominantly at CG Spectrum I'm a mentor, and I create content for the Houdini effects course. So this stream will all be about in Houdini, because that's what I use. But you can potentially, if you don't use Houdini, you can take some of these things and use them in other packages as well. So yeah, there's a little bit about me. I didn't write that, but there you go. So the Minerva challenge is by KitBash3D, and it's a great challenge and a great kit that they're giving away for free. They have released it already. Some of you may have already been working with it. That's awesome. That's awesome to have, some assets to do stuff with, especially as an effects artist in Houdini. I'm not a modeler really, so I love it when there's a free asset that comes along that I can do stuff with. Hey guys, thank you. Hello everybody, nice to see you again. People from Texas, New Zealand, great. Yeah, let me know where you're from. It's always interesting. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. It's morning here, 10 o'clock in the morning. So the KitBash challenge is... Hey, KitBash is here. Great. So the KitBash challenge is open now, and it is closing. You can see there it's closing on the 2nd of December. And then on the 20th, right before Christmas, nice. The winners are announced, and there's some great prizes. We can go and have a look at the website and see those in a second, but there are some awesome prizes. I wish that I could win, but I don't. I've seen the entries and I don't think I will stand a chance. So yeah, I highly encourage you to enter, download the kit and have a play with it. It's a lot of fun, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. Florida, nice. Hey Brian, CG Spectrum student, nice. We might have a good mix of students and other people from all over the place today. Seattle, oh, everyone, lots of people from America. That's cool. Nice. So what I thought we might do is take a look at this cool video that KitBash have done. So I'm just going to, hopefully, I was trying to work this out earlier, hopefully I can get the audio going. Let's see what happens, hey? So I'm in Houdini here, but let me just pull this up. And I'm going to hit play. And fingers crossed, it works.
KitBashers, this is Mission Control. We've discovered a new star system, the Minerva Galaxy. Within it are countless planets and biomes. Your mission, should you choose to accept, is to build a settlement on a planet within the galaxy. To get you started, download your Mission to Minerva kit. It has everything your settlement will need, from cargo ships and terrain rovers to habitats, science centers, and terraformers. Build your world and share it with the community. Your contributions will be seen by the industry's finest and could lend you amazing prizes to help you on your next mission. If this is your first time building in a virtual world, head over to basic training and they'll get you up to warp speed in no time. Together, we will create the Minerva Galaxy. Have fun and good luck.
Hey, there we go. I think that's a cool video. It's quite inspiring. So like the video said, you can download the kit from here, from the KitBash3D website. And there's a couple of intro videos, and you can watch that video again if you want to. And if you come all the way down the end, you can see the judges of the competition, some pretty epic judges there, and some cool prizes. So, you know, Wacom's, graphics cards, everybody loves a new graphics card. KitBash kits, that's great, that's awesome. And we are also sponsoring a prize, which is a 9-month advanced course with us, which is a fully mentored course. And there's Nomon is also doing a subscription, ArtStation, and another ArtStation gift card. So lots of cool prizes. So it's definitely worth entering. Nice to see everybody. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. It's good to be back. I've been really inspired by having a look at what has already been done. It's incredible what people have been doing. So, you know, it's definitely worth checking out ArtStation and KitBash Facebook and Instagram, because there's some really cool things being done. This first one here is pretty cool. Lots of really good storytelling, as someone says in the comments, like composition. You know, you'll go far if you have a good grasp on composition and, you know, the ability to construct a shot. So these are super cool stills. Yeah, they really tell a story, and we'll see all of these assets in a second. So yeah, there's some really, really cool ones being done. I like this one as well. It's cool. It's like you know, the artists have simplified things for themselves by having such a dark, you know, kind of mysterious background where you don't really need to show too much of the terrain or, you know, anything else apart from a couple of hero elements. I really like this this ship as well. It's very, very cool. So yeah, loads of awesome stuff being done, and I've been looking at these for inspiration. And I saw this one actually after I had done some animation on the ship, and I thought, oh, that's cool. And awesome stuff in the background on this one as well. This one actually inspired me to come up with an idea for the tunnels and how to achieve that in Houdini. Lots of cool stuff with background animation going on in this one, which is really nice. Sort of creates a full scene. So I encourage you to have a look at what people have been doing, because it's super cool to see. This one looks cool. Let's check that one out. I guess it's a video. I really liked the look of that cloud picture. That's sweet. So yeah, let's get stuck in. Oh, I should mention as well that there is, you will see in the description for the videos, there is a nice discount code provided by KitBash. It's only valid until the 15th, I believe, and it's 35% off for people watching this stream. So it's on eligible kits and not on any other discounted kits. So, but yeah, check that out. It's in the description. There's a link to KitBash there as well. So I've been doing a little bit of prep. This stream is only 2 hours, so it's kind of it's challenging to do a full scene in 2 hours. So I have done a little bit of prep, but I'm going to show you some stuff, and I'm going to just come up with some stuff. And please ask questions. You know, if you have any questions or you want me to try something, please go for it. You guys who have been with me, you know how I like to work sort of just off the cuff. So I'm happy to just kind of, you know, take some ideas and run with it. The first thing I do when I get any KitBash set is just take a good look at all the assets. And one thing I actually did with this one is to render out every asset so that I could see it. In Houdini, the materials don't seem to display terribly well when they're hooked up through a material network like the way that they are, which is not such a big deal. They render fine, but we sort of have to render them to see them, or we could reapply materials, but that could be time consuming. So what I did was just, I put everything into a kind of switch and just, I did switched by frame, so that as I rendered, it switched to a different asset. And I was able to get 60 frames of every frame being a different asset, which was cool. Kind of automated it for me. So this gave me a really nice way of being able to visualize what the things look like and, you know, maybe what I could use them for. And just to test that the materials were working correctly as well. You like the background music? Thanks. You let me know if is it too loud. It might be too loud. So we've got some walkways. You know, they really lend themselves to sort of procedural creation. They're sort of a piece, you know, like Lego or something. We can extend those, make big long walkways, kind of like what I was mentioning before. Intersection type pieces. I really like these tunnels. They look cool. Yeah, I'm going to use Houdini for this. I only use Houdini. For 3D work, I only use Houdini. Plants, it's cool. Yeah, start a whole colony. More tunnels. I think I don't have the names associated with them, but if you have a look at the names in here, you can see, you know, what they are meant to be. I think this one is like a community hub sort of thing, community center. I've sorted my file as well so that I can easily see sort of what assets are what, and I color coded them so that I can know just by looking very quickly where I need to go. Because when they come in, when you first load in like the HIP file, the Houdini file that KitBash provides, they're just a big long line. So I just thought it'll help me sort of be able to work out what I need by organizing them this way. You can see I've got props and small props, vehicles. So if I come over here, I can find, you know, all the vehicles. So if I go back to that render, yeah, I found this kind of easy. You know, it sort of just shows me exactly what everything looks like so that I could potentially make choices. I also scaled everything to fit in the render because some things are big and some things are small, so they all get scaled to sort of the same relative size. More plants, and so there's some sets in there, some assets which are really large, and they are sort of combinations of multiple sets, so or multiple assets all kind of merged together, and it gives you a kind of indication of what you could do with them as well. So if you have a look at those ones, you can sort of, you know, see how they've been put together and how the tunnels connect and how the walkways connect. In there as well is 3 terrain samples. And I started setting these up last night actually, and they're cool. They're really useful for getting a quick terrain in there. In Houdini we have the height field terrain tools, which I'm going to use, but I'm going to feed in these textures as the basis for that, and I'll show you how I set that up. So the idea is that it's a mining kind of operation, right? A mining colony. So there are these, you know, cranes and things. Here's a good indication of how you can connect things up with these tunnels and walkways as well, where you've got, these are the things that I've sorted into smaller buildings. So you've got these ones, and you can see these are the same asset, but they've sort of put them off this main hub and connected them with those tunnel assets. So yeah, there's lots and lots of different, oh, there's the ship. And that one is something that I want to use for something. There's another terrain, roads. I think this is the terrain that I liked the most. It's hard to see on a sphere what it looks like, but let's have a look at the terrain, because this is a good place to start. So those are all textures, those ones that we're seeing on spheres, and I didn't know that this node existed until yesterday. I guessed that there was probably a way to do it, but this is a way of loading in a height field or a height map, a displacement map, into a height field, so creating a terrain from a displacement map. Let me just check the comments. Will I be covering dynamics? Yeah, so in this stream I won't be, most likely, but this is all about layout, so I'll be setting the scene up in this stream. And then in 2 weeks, there is another live stream where I'll be doing the effects. So I'm an effects artist. That's what I do. That's what I enjoy. So I want to, you know, do some destruction or do some dynamics or an explosion or something. So that will be covered in the next stream, and there is already a link for that in the on our CG Spectrum YouTube channel, and that will go live. I think it's on the 22nd. Could be wrong about that, but yeah, the link should be there. I'm probably going to try and use Karma. I'll see how it goes. I don't have a lot of experience using Karma in production. I still use Mantra, but I'm trying to learn it, so I'll give it a go, see what happens. If I fail, I might have to revert. So yeah, KitBash is the best. Yeah, I agree. I use their assets for a lot, and I've done streams with their assets before. I really enjoy it. Yeah, if you're interested in dynamics and using the kits, there are a couple of past CG Spectrum streams under the VFX playlist where I've done other things with KitBash assets. So if you're interested in that stuff, check it out. So yeah, I loaded in all three. XPU, yeah, isn't XPU still kind of in beta though? So there are sort of limitations to some of the features. I'm sort of staying away from it for the time being, but I should play around with it. So there are 3 terrains here that I loaded into these height field file nodes, and they're all pretty cool. You know, these ones have these kind of line striations, I guess you would call them. And you could use those for, I guess, other things as well. Like if you wanted to build rock assets, you could probably use these. I thought this one was sort of the nicest for a planet surface or a rocky surface. I thought it was kind of cool. Now I wanted to extend this terrain to make it bigger and tile this image, and there's no option for doing that on here. So I thought, well, you know, there's a lock here, which means that this is just a subset of tools. So I unlocked it and went and had a look to see where I could change that. And if you go right up to the top, I think it was, I can't remember where I did it now. Let's see. Here in the uniform scale. No, maybe it was in the COP.net. Yeah, here. So this is the COP network is where this texture is sort of brought in and turned into, you know, the image that the height field is going to be using. And I inserted a transform in here to kind of scale the image down so that when I scale this up, it's probably a bit too confusing, but when I scale this up, the image actually scales with it, and I didn't want that. So I wanted to be able to scale the grid but have the image tile. So what I had to do was scale the image down by the sort of same amount that I scaled up the plane. I don't know. I won't go into it too much, but anyway, it took a little while to figure out, but I managed to get it to extend, so you can see the difference between those two. There, it's the same, but this one is just tiling. There's a little bit of volume resolution loss. Sorry, let me catch up on November 21. Oh, thank you, Tea and Cake, for confirming. Seeing a lot of 3D artists using proceduralism for concept art, generating multiple buildings, vehicles, spaceships. Yeah, look, I think, I mean, there's a barrier with Houdini, which is that it can be a little more challenging to learn than some of the other packages, or at least challenging to get into. But I think it's getting easier all the time, and Houdini side effects are really trying to, trying to make it easier and make that barrier to entry less. So I would love to see more people using it and for it to be easy enough for concept artists to just get in and lay things out. I think as a layout tool, it's great because there are lots of really useful procedural tools, and tools for scattering are really good, copying, and I'll show you some tricks for the for doing the tunnels later, which are incredibly useful. So yeah, I think it would be great if, you know, it got to the point where it was really, really easy for people to just go, I've never really used Houdini before, but I want to go and lay out some things. And yeah, I think it's possible. So now what I also did here, I was just doing this last night just to get something in, was I took some of the buildings. I chose this one. I thought this was pretty cool looking, sort of landing pad building with cranes and stuff. I guess it's kind of like a dock where you might land and the cranes pick stuff up off the ships. This is just, I haven't done anything to this asset. I've just positioned it. So I've given all the assets a little identifier, basically an identifier integer based on the name of this node, which may or may not help me later on. I just wanted to give them some kind of easy thing that I could use to identify each asset. So I've just positioned this one, landing pad, and I've also positioned another one over here, control tower. I deleted the glass so that I could see through it, and if I go inside it, I can see out. So I bring those into my terrain, turn them into a volume. Doesn't need to be particularly high resolution volume, just want them to be a volume, so that I can use this height field mask by object node, which is cool. It's got some different options for method. Project will just kind of ray the building down onto the surface. So I'm just projecting that volume, and I don't even think I need a VDB for that method. The VDB would be for the SDF volume method. Maybe slightly faster to use the VDB. But that will make a mask for me based on that building on the surface, and then I can use the mask expand if I want to grow it, and then flatten that area of the terrain so that I get a nice flat area for my building to sit on. Now I've got a height here which I've derived, and this is why I split the buildings up into different buildings, so I'm doing this twice. I've derived the height that this should flatten to by the Y min of this object merge. So if I middle click on any node, you know, we get this kind of details view, and we can see here we've got center minimum, so that's the value there that I'm accessing. So that's the minimum value that it is in the Y axis, and then you have the maximum view, which is the maximum Y, which is 51, and the overall size of the whole thing. So these are useful sometimes, and it's very useful here because I can just put the height of this flatten to the minimum height of the building, which means that when I, you know, merge my building on there, it's going to be exactly at the height that the bottom of the asset is. So no matter what asset this is or where I position this, this height will adapt to that minimum value. Without that, you know, we get the thing going through it like that, and the legs might not line up. So yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes you might want the ground to sort of be undulating and noisy underneath, but sometimes you might want to flatten it. I think that's kind of cool. So I've done that twice with the two buildings that I have in here so far. So same thing over here. And the reason that I had to split them up is that their minimums are different. So if I had them both in the same object merge, they would, you know, it would flatten down here for this one instead of up a bit higher. So these are different values. Okay, so here's this one. And then flatten and clear. So clear the mask, and you can see there. And I could add noise into those areas if I wanted to. If I wanted to add noise back into those areas, I could do that using height field noise, just using the same mask. You know, there's a lot of height field options here, but I could go and find a noise option and add that in. Let's see if it works. It's gonna add it to everywhere. Mask. Oh, so the mask input is here. You can see that it's grayed out here. I guess I can just do that. Let's try. Oh, there we go. So you can see here, now the element size probably just needs to come right down because of the scale that we're trying to work out. And here we could probably change potentially the combine method, but I'm just going to set the amplitude down quite a bit. I'm not going to mess around with this too much. I don't want this to be a whole thing about height fields, but you know, it gives you the ability to just add a little bit of noise back into that area so it's not super flat or like, you know, perfectly smooth. You could probably like subtract as well instead. So lots of cool things that you can do with these terrains that are already supplied, and you can, you know, you could completely change them, completely manipulate them, or make your own and still use these kind of settings to get your assets in there and have them sitting in a nice way. Now I've converted this to a mesh at the end so that I can check it with textures. So I applied a material to this. I just grabbed the texture component of that provided terrain, and there it is there, base color, and it has normals as well. And so if I turn that on, you can see it doesn't quite line up. I mean, maybe you can't tell, but it's not lining up because I did that scale thing. So I have to also scale the UVs. And there you go, you can see now the kind of sides line up correctly. It's got this kind of icy, I guess it's icy or something, you know, don't know what that's meant to be. So this is kind of what I have. I've got these large buildings so far, and I've got this ship. So I took the ship that's in there, the lander or whatever it is meant to be, and I kind of created a really rough rig for it. And, you know, I am not an animator, I'm not a rigger, so I don't do this stuff very often, but, you know, when I'm creating my own projects, I have to. So what I did was, thankfully, there is a group for each one of these things that I needed to isolate. So, you know, if you middle click on these, you can see all of the groups that are there, and they're pretty well named, so I can see thruster A, B, C, and D. Sometimes, if you don't know what thing is in what group, what I will do is just select that thing, hit delete, isolate it, and then middle click. Because this is removing unused groups, you can see what group is left. So I can see then, oh, okay, it's in the thruster D group, and the amount that's in there is the same amount that's here. So everything is in that group. And then I can go and put that group in here. And I've just wildcarded anything that has the word thruster A at the end, and I get that. So I did that for each one. And then I positioned, so ignoring this subnet for a second, I positioned the pivot at the kind of, you know, rotation point where I wanted it to rotate. And then I did it all on this one here. So this is where the animation is, and I'm just animating this thing like that, just rotation. And then inside this subnet, what I've done is isolated, based on a group, the things that are emissive. So there's this emissive blue group. And then I am measuring, don't know why this is complaining about an off group. I'm measuring based on the connectivity. So I'm actually just trying to isolate these two round sections. And I did that through a measure to get the area of each piece. So then I have just those. So I'm blasting things based on a certain area. Now, I tried to do a poly extrude first, but because of their conical shape, they extruded like that, which wasn't great. So I used a divide set to remove shared edges to get rid of any of the subdivisions inside, and that just leaves me with that ring, which I can extrude and inset however I like. And I'm creating thrusters here, so yeah, basic ones. So I'm just creating that shape and then turning it into a volume, and then running that into a volume visualize. Now that's not setting the material or anything, but it's just giving me an indication in the viewport of you know, what's going on. So I merge that. So I do that for each one, and because all of these are modeled in exactly the same way, this subnetwork that I made works. They all have the same group. They all are the same size. So it just works. I can copy it from each one and just merge it in, and then do my rotation on top of that, and it all just follows. And I could animate these, I suppose, you know, going in and out. So I did that 4 times. I merged those together. And then I had the ship without the thrusters. And I've sort of split off the door. And I've removed the struts, because it was going to take me too long to figure out how to do a rig for a sliding strut. So I just ignored that for now. Gonna take a look at it another time. So for this one, again, I just moved the pivot to the location here, and you know, if you don't know, in Houdini you can just hit the insert key to switch between transform mode and pivot mode. So I just moved the pivot like that to the location, and then if I apply rotation, you can see I made a note for myself that the door close rotation, so fully closed, is at -55, so just did that. And then merged all that together. So what I have now is a ship static at world 0 with this kind of animation going on. And then I did some questionable animation. So I'm not a great animator, but what I did here was I just had the ship taking off, and I was kind of trying to think of the end goal here. So the end goal is I'm going to create an effects shot. So I was like, should I crash the ship? I've kind of got it struggling a little bit. You know, it's kind of, it's taking off, but then it sort of drops a little bit, and it tilts, and then it drops again, and sort of struggles to take off. So, I don't know what's going to happen with this ship, whether it's going to crash or whether something else is going to happen. Maybe it's tied down, you know, maybe it's got some ropes on it. But eventually it sort of flies off. And that may well change, but I just wanted something in there. And then after testing, you know, doing a flipbook, you must always do a preview to see what your animation looks like in real time, because the viewport inevitably will not be perfectly real time. I slowed it down. I decided it was too quick, so I slowed it down. And then this transform here is just putting it into position. I'm actually scaling it down as well, for lining up with this sort of platform. So it's now starting on there. And when I did that, I realized that it was crashing into this crane, which maybe, you know, sort of is a good thing for doing some effects. Maybe it knocks the crane down and that causes a big explosion or something. So now I've got, you know, I wanted to get that in early because it's a story element. You know, it gives me kind of an idea of what I could be doing with this. And even if I wasn't doing an animation, you know, if I was just doing a still, getting the ship in there and posing it like that is a really good way just to give your still and your shot some dynamism and, you know, make it feel a bit more interesting. So that's kind of all I've done so far. I did some R&D with the tunnels stuff as well, but I also, getting those two in there, I started sort of playing around with camera angles. So, you know, it's not a particularly interesting camera angle, but once we get the animation in there, you can sort of see what the ship's doing. So I came up with a close camera, a far camera, and this animated camera, which is sort of just tracking with the ship. Are you joking when you say that, Edit Balai? Sorry if I got your name wrong. Or does it seem okay to you? Houdini's really not that bad. It's just, you know, I'm probably making it seem complicated because I'm talking quickly, but it really doesn't take much to get into layout and modeling, you know. It's the other stuff which, you know, when you get into more technical simulation stuff, that can be challenging, but this stuff really isn't that hard. So, you know, I created this animated camera which is just sort of rotating around, and then I thought, and this is why I wanted to delete the glass inside the control tower. I thought, I'll stick a camera inside of there, so, you know, I can kind of set some sort of interesting scene for viewing what's going on out there. And it may be that when I finally put all this together that I cut between multiple cameras. And I think that's a really good way of making your work seem more cinematic. Because if you watch a movie, it's not just made up of a single shot, a single long traveling shot. I mean, sometimes they are, but it's very rare. If you watch a movie, they're usually made up of multiple shots from multiple cameras, roughly 3 seconds long. If you count while you're watching a movie, you know, count the seconds that a shot is there, and on average they're like, you know, 3 or 4 seconds long. So that's only 72, 96 frames if you're working at 24 frames per second. Yeah, do I prefer to create my animations using third-party program like this or Unity, Unreal? Well, this is my only software that I use, so this is the one that I prefer. I don't really work in Unreal because I do feature film work. It's all done in Houdini basically, and Maya for animation. But me as an effects artist, I work purely in Houdini, and what I render out of Houdini goes into the final output. Of course, things are changing these days, and it's been on my list for a long time to learn, you know, some real-time software, because I'm sure it won't be too long before that's fully integrated into film production, as it already is in some areas. But yeah, no, I am just solely Houdini, so I do everything in here apart from compositing. So I will render out of here and I will composite in Nuke. So that's a compositing package that is used in film. That's right. No worries. I mean, Blender's another interesting one, Saito. I think you know, there's lots of really cool things in Blender, and you know, it's free obviously, and it's accessible. So yeah, I think there's lots of cool things that you can do in there. All right, so let's get stuck in to creating some more stuff. So what I want to do is, you know, place around some more buildings and then try and link them up with the tunnels and, you know, things that we have. So let's go and take a look at our large buildings. I've already sort of copied in some of the ones that I like. So I went through and sort of went, yeah, I really like, you know, this one I think is cool. And this one sort of like is just begging to be blown up, you know, this big thing here. I think this one might be glass. If we look at this, it has the identifier 21. So this is how my system of renders works. If I go to 21, hopefully I'll see it. Look at that. So there we go. It's kind of like a glass dome, which is, you know, which is cool. I think you could do a lot of interesting stuff with that. If I look at the community center, which is number 7, let's go take a look at that. You can see that's all glass as well. So if you put a camera inside there and we're looking out, you would see through that into something. That's one thing I really like about a lot of the buildings, is that there is interior to them, so that you can actually go inside or position a camera inside or do something inside them as well. So if I zoom into this one, you know, you can see there's stuff in here. So you could create a whole cool scene and, you know, be watching something outside, like, you know, looking out to space or looking out to that explosion. Kind of reminds me of Total Recall or something. You know, you could do some cool sci-fi stuff using something like this. Even, you know, cut to a shot of the interior exploding or something if you're doing the visual effects. So I think that one's a really cool asset, and you can see it's got lots of tunnel connectors. So I think we can do something with those. And then, so yeah, we've got this big one, which is cool, and it says that that's the terraformer. What have we got here? This is the rover garage, so I guess this is the garage for you know, one of those vehicles, which I'm sure we could utilize. And then this is the one that we're using, which is the landing pad. And then the greenhouse is kind of cool as well. So this one, you know, it's called the greenhouse, so presumably we could feed these, you know, fill these with plants, or they already are. Let's have a look. There we go. That's cool. So I think that's a pretty cool one to use. And again, you know, interior shots, you can sort of go inside these and, you know, go through the tunnels, and it's actually kind of fun to change the view here. Fatima says, what are the areas that are Houdini specific that you prefer to Maya or other programs? Well, I mean, Houdini is the effects powerhouse, so there is no other software that I would use or recommend for doing effects. And it's the, you know, it's the predominant software that's used in the industry. So I just wouldn't even consider, if you're looking for an industry job, I just wouldn't consider any other software. Sorry, Blender and Maya users. But, you know, the other thing that I like about Houdini and why it is being widely utilized in a lot of industries is that it is very procedural. It is very flexible. It's non-destructive, so that you can kind of, you know, you can see every node, every choice that I've made is there and able to be changed, turned off or manipulated, or I could change the asset and those things would still work. And that is really valuable when you're in production, you know, because it saves you time, and time is money. So animation, I think, is getting better in Houdini, but, you know, I know animators still prefer using Maya for traditional animation, character animation, all that stuff. There's lots of new tools in Houdini now, but yeah, that's one thing that I definitely know. And traditional modeling is not as amazing in Houdini, although they have been introducing new tools all the time. Traditional poly modeling is, yeah, maybe a little more difficult in Houdini, but, you know, you get used to it as well. I sort of made it my only software, and by doing that, I just have to get used to the way that it works. And you do, you know, you can adapt. Yeah, but, you know, as Saito says, yeah, basically the same thing that I said. So yeah, it's, you know, its main thing that a lot of people use it for in film, especially, is effects and procedural kind of layout. So I don't know what building am I going to use here. Let's go and put this terraformer in somewhere. You'll see as well, I scaled everything down by 0.5 just to sort of make it a bit more manageable. So I just have to make sure that I do that to everything, so that everything is sort of within the same relative scale. I'm just going to move my chat window over here so I can see it a little better. Sorry. Don't want to miss any questions. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ghost other objects so that I can see the terrain. And I'm going to position this somewhere, or maybe I'll just say show all, and then I can see everything. And you can see now I can sort of position it around, and I might template these buildings so I can see them. It's a little hard to see them on the texture. Let's see, there we go. Where am I going to put this? Let's have a look through the far cam. Yeah, absolutely. I think Brian, they are. I think with Solaris now and the stage context in Houdini, they are looking at replacing things like Katana and Clarice, because it's all in Houdini. As I've already kind of described, Houdini is super flexible, so it offers, you know, a lot more, and it's already used in the pipeline for effects, and, you know, other artists might be using it. So I think it makes sense, you know, it makes sense for studios to kind of remove that extra thing, and because it is so much more flexible. And, you know, really, if you're just doing lighting and scene assembly, you don't need to learn all the other aspects of Houdini, which might be more difficult. Then, you know, it's quite easy. I don't know, cost-wise as well, I don't know whether it financially makes sense to, you know, not use those other ones anymore and use Houdini. I think I will. I think I will blow it up. You go tube yourself. Yeah, I think I probably will go and blow it up. That's what I like to do. Explosions, you know. If you guys have seen my other streams, I do like to do a lot of explosions. So I'm sort of trying to put it, I don't know if I'm going to use all these cameras, but I'm sort of trying to put it somewhere where it's going to work for a majority of cameras. And I don't want to put it right in front of what's going on there. So, you know, even, it doesn't have to be kind of all in the camera. There's, you know, someone was talking about composition before. It doesn't have to be like completely visible in every shot, and doesn't need to be smack bang in the center of every shot. It can be sort of positioned off camera, and you know, there's no need to show everything. So just take a look through all those. Can't see it in that one, but that's okay. And you know, we can create another out for that one, so that we'll say out. Wait for my copy buffer. Out. What was this one? Terraformer. And then what else am I going to put around? This rover garage is a bit smaller, so let's go and chuck that one somewhere. Yeah, look, I think Blender is another thing that, you know, we've been looking at the school, and sort of we've, you know, I'm sort of monitoring it for the you know, the industry use. And when I was working at Method, which is now Framestore, one of the visual effects supervisors there was always going on about Blender and how good it is. And you know, I think there are certainly aspects of it which are amazing. I think it will only be when the industry, you know, sort of picks it up and studios start using it as a whole that, you know, that it will really gain traction. But I know there's a lot of support for it out there. There's a big user community, which is great. Whoops. So I'm just manually placing these things around. I'm not trying to do this aspect because I'm really sort of I guess I want to be specific about the layout of these, so I want to sort of make sure that they're in the right position and that they suit the story that I'm trying to tell. And I may need to change my cameras, but that's not a bad position. Post animation, yeah. I mean, yeah, it depends, I suppose. But yes, you could look at it that way. But you know, you can use it as a complete tool. I don't think you need to think, well, you have to have Maya, you have to have Houdini, you have to, you know, have all these softwares. You can just use one for everything if you want. All right, so got that one in. Let's create a null. Wow, it's so slow to copy just a null. Make sure that's scaled, yes. So this one, this rover garage. And what else have we got? Oh, let's try and get this community hub in there. So I'm getting all the larger things in first, and then we can look at putting in smaller things. And I probably won't have time to like fully set dress this today, but there is another stream on the 21st where I will be doing the VFX, and you know, between then I might go in and add some extra details or take some of the smaller props and just put them around. You know, I might do that in a slightly more procedural way, and you know, if I have time, I'll show you kind of what I might do for that. So I also don't need to worry terribly about some of this stuff because I will be flattening this terrain, so I can embed them here and then go and, you know, fix it later on. I don't know if that makes sense to have that thing there, but let's see where it lies. There it is there. Over on the side. Let's check out the far camera. Yeah, Brian, I think Maya is pretty well ingrained in the studios as far as animation is concerned, unless something major happens with you know, with Autodesk kind of pulling the pin, or you know, who knows, you know, things always happen with software. I didn't really think, you know, 15 years ago that I'd be using Houdini, but you know, about I don't know, about 10 years ago or something, it's sort of really started to be, you know, the buzz was getting bigger and bigger for Houdini, and it was like, wow, you know, you can do all these really cool effects in there. And it was one package, whereas previously we'd have to get plugins to do fire and plugin or a standalone program to do water simulations. Hey Mohammed, yeah, good to see you too. Thanks for joining me. So yeah, I think, you know, that is one aspect that that made Houdini really popular for VFX, because it was all contained, and you didn't have to buy, you know, 5 or 6 plugins to do everything that you needed. There's my community hub there. I'm not really getting a good sense of it in any of these shots apart from that one, so I might move it over here. So I'm just sort of I don't know if KitBash is still with us, but I don't know what they use to do their modeling. But this, if you've just joined us, Trent, I am doing this whole layout and stream with KitBash assets, and this is from the free Minerva kit, which is, there's a link available in the description. So if you want to check it out, go and have a look. It's really cool. There's lots of really cool stuff, but they're modeled in such a way that, you know, you bring them into Houdini, you can sort of pull them apart and add animation and add things like I have done. Maybe that makes more sense, having it a bit closer. So I should see it now. Oh, there you go. I sort of fly over it in my anim camera, which is cool. You can see it nicely in my close and far camera. Nice. I don't know what that'll mean for the tunnels that I want to put, but that'll be right. Let's go and add that. It might actually be good for, let me blast. I bet there is a group called glass in there somewhere. There's tons of groups, but like on this one here, I was able to blast the glass away from the control tower. So let's go and see if, hey, that's all right, Trent, no worries. Let's go and see if I can blast away glass from the community center. Hey, there we go. So now I can actually get inside the community center and see in here. You know, the glass does have a transparent material on it, but in the viewport it's just easier. So I could, you know, let's switch the view. Here, there's you can do it using M, but there's a toggle between first-person navigation and tumbling mode. So tumbling is just the regular tumbling mode. I've been using this a lot, excuse me, with layout, because it puts me in a kind of first-person view, which is like being in a game, which is cool. And if I can use the same kind of game controls like W, S, A, and D, and if I roll my mouse, I can decrease the speed, so it's really a bit slower. And then I think I've got up and down as well, so I can actually sort of play this now like I'm in a game, which is cool. Obviously, there's no collision detection, but I can sort of use this to work out, like, yeah, you know, I might want to, from a perspective of a person, oops, I might want to sort of position my camera like this, and then I can sort of see the action. So it's kind of a cool way of, you know, moving around an asset or a scene. And then I can set keyframes, you know, create a camera and set keyframes based on that. So it could be, you know, we could position a camera sort of here. And, oh, what did I do? If we position a camera here, then we can get a really kind of cool view of if that was an explosion happening there, where the ship hit the hit that crane. We could get an interesting look at that from inside a building. So I'm going to set a camera there and say community camera. Sounds nice. And then I can go and adjust things like focal length if I wanted to make it wider. And I could also animate it then as well if I wanted to. So yeah, that's cool. All right, so let's go back in here, and if we now go back to the terrain, we can bring these in and, you know, do this same sort of setup. How to use first person. So you switch to M. M is to toggle between first person and tumble, and then you can get all these in the help if you I had to look up the help for up and down because I'm not really a gamer, so I don't know the commands that well, but it's W for forwards, S for backwards, A for left, D for right, and then Q and E for up and down. And then I think there's some other ones as well, but that's, you know, it's just the old WASD. So yeah, it's cool. And then, you know, I can always lock my camera to change it, reposition it, tumble it around again. I think, yeah, R or something is roll, maybe. No, maybe not. So yeah, it's a cool way to sort of, you know, walk through your environment and see stuff happening. So there we go. We've created a camera. Now I'm going to duplicate this object merge, and I'm going to bring in I'll bring in the community center, turn it into a volume. I'm going to get out of that view, and I'm just going to hit save as well, you know, just in case, you never know. And I'm going to duplicate this little workflow here. Hey, no worries. Sure. So there we go. That's a volume. I'm showing all, which can be a bit confusing. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So, height field mask by object. We get a projection. I'll expand that a little bit so it flattens out a little more area. And then there you go, you can see. So if I now show all, you can see that. Now I have to do that height thing. So the flatten is linked to the previous object merge. So because I'm duplicating the object merges, I just have to change that number there, 3, and that will give me the minimum of that object. There you go. It sort of rises up to meet it, which is cool. And on here we've got a blur, so you can see I could actually create a kind of hard cliff there, or, you know, if I just have a little bit of blur, it's like a little platform. So I can also take this, you know, right down if I want to sort of really nestle it in there, which maybe doesn't look too bad. But you can sort of play with that. There are a few different options with this as well. So there we go. There's one. Now we'll just duplicate that again. It's a little bit tedious doing it many times. There's possibly a easier way to do this, but you know, it's alright. It's not too bad. So I'll do the same thing with this one. Just make sure I duplicated that. So I'll duplicate this. Just change my hookup. And there we go. We just need to change that object merge to object merge 4. Let's get that going. And you can see that one is sort of, looks like it's rising and flattening some of them. So, you know, we can sort of play with that a little bit, maybe make it a bit softer with that one. And then if we go back out, and if we take all these new ones that we added and just merge them in to this outbuildings merge, then we can view them all together. And so there are so many buildings, so you know, you could really go crazy with this stuff. Looks like my blur is not quite helping there, so let's go and fix that stuff. Sorry about my cough. I've just sort of recovered from a cold, which thankfully it's not too bad now, but I do have a bit of a cough still. Okay, so, you know, there we go. I guess we could expand this a little more so that and then if we blur it, then it won't be as bad. There we go. That's looking a little better. The other thing is too, I'm not getting particularly close to some of these things, so it's not perfect. You know, maybe it doesn't matter too much. Maybe I won't worry about the rover garage for now, although, yeah, I don't know. Let's not worry about that, so we can focus on some other things. We've just hit the hour mark, so I want to make sure that I can sort of show you guys enough stuff. Oh, look at that. That's not so good. So I've blurred into the other one now. So you do have to be careful with, you know, with your masks. Is that an acoustic guitar behind me? Yes, there's three. There's one. That was my grandmother's guitar. It's like a 1930 Dobro resonator, and then a Stratocaster and I can't remember what that is. Epiphone Casino or something. Oh, Sheraton. So let's go and do some tunnels. Try and do some connections, and I'll show you some other interesting tricks with how you can sort of lay things out on a on a non-uniform kind of terrain like this. Here we've got some tunnel sort of points. Maybe this one is a good one to sort of connect to, and let's see if there's somewhere where we can connect it to over here. Might have to go all the way around here. So what I might do, I guess there's probably another one over here as well. Maybe not. No tunnels. Oh, there's one here, but that doesn't really help us. So we'll have to create. Yeah, and this is probably bad layout choice on my part. But what I'll do is I will create a tunnel that runs down here and around, and perhaps I'll put it into a junction, one of those T or cross junctions, and then run another tunnel off to connect there. Might be a bit complicated, but let's see. In here, I've done a little bit of R&D for how I could get research and development, if you don't know, for how I could get these tunnels working. So initially, when I was doing the tunnel stuff, so what I did here to get a single tunnel, as I couldn't find one, I may have just, you know, not looked hard enough, but I couldn't find just a single tunnel. The asset that is there is just a double tunnel, and I wanted a single. So I just isolated it from this kit, from this particular component, and then reset its transforms so that it was perfectly kind of flat with the axes, and not rotated. So it was pretty easy rotation. And then I made a group for the feet, and I'll show you why a little bit later. But there are a few options, you know, for doing stuff with these tunnels. You could just use copy and transform. So, you know, if we offset by a certain amount, now you could use the min or max or size to create the offset. And I did try that, but because the feet stick out a little bit further than the tunnel opening, if you use the max size, your next tunnel, so if we set the max size, and we can do this procedurally, but if I just put in 9.1, you will see that the feet line up, but there's a little gap. So what I just did it sort of by eye. And I suppose you could sort of maybe put, there's a little tunnel connector node that you could put in there. I suppose you could do that, but you know, it's sort of, yeah, it's fine. I don't think we'll ever see the feet overlapping. Hey, Renal. How can you isolate the red masked area into a mesh geo? In other words, convert that red mask into an isolated geo. You mean the red mask in the terrain material? In the terrain, let's have a look. I don't know. You may be able to clip by mask. height field. Oh, sorry, height field crop, I believe. Crop. Cutout by object could be interesting. I think I've used a crop, and there is a mask layer. Mask. There you go. So it hasn't isolated all of the red, but it has isolated that area. So, you know, perhaps you could utilize that. You can also potentially convert. Oops, let me just convert the cropped area. It gives you, if the mask is still present, if you haven't cleared that mask away, it does give you that as an attribute, so that if you were to blast based on that mask attribute, so let's say at mask equals or greater than 0, it's probably a point attribute, there it is, delete non-selected. Now I can change this value to get rid of more. There you go. So yeah, I mean the crop is not 100% necessary there, but it does sort of get it down to that area, and then you could convert and blast based on the mask value. There may be another way to do that, but yeah, that works. So it's useful that the mask volume that is in the height field gets converted to an attribute when you do the convert. You can also bake point colors. If you have colors in your height field, you can bake them down to point colors. Hope that helps. So let's go back to the tunnels. So yeah, as I was saying, you know, the offset is not exactly the size. Hey, that dude 4290. For beginners, what are some good tutorials or information to learn Houdini? Well, I think the Side Effects website is probably the best place to start to get some good basic tutorials. We at CG Spectrum teach a foundation course in Houdini. But, you know, if you're just starting out, I think it's good to work through the really beginner tutorials in the Side Effects website. There are some really, really good ones on there now. Yeah, I think that's probably, you know, a good place to start. I've got lots of past streams on the CG Spectrum YouTube channel. They are a little more advanced probably, but you know, it's interesting, I think, to see people working in the software. Even if you don't fully understand every aspect, you might pick up something, you know. So feel free to go and have a look at those. But yeah, you know, Side Effects website is a good place to start. And if you're interested in doing a course, come and talk to me. So, you know, this is a good way to do a straight line of tunnels. You can just use copy and transform. You could even add a little rotation if you wanted to, you know, get some kind of crazy stuff going on. I suppose if I rotated them this way, maybe not with the rotation. I suppose you could kind of do this and then get a little weird with the rotation like that, but it's a bit difficult to get them to line up doing this way. But for straight lines, it's fine. What I was playing around with was how to get this on a curve. So I was inspired by one of these ones. I can't remember which one it was. I think I showed you guys earlier. I think it was this one, actually. I was inspired by this one, seeing these curved, you know, tunnel connections. There's lots of curved ones here. I was like, oh, I wonder how they did that. It's done in Maya, I think. I don't know what interface that is. I'm so not a Maya user that I assume that that's Maya, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's Blender. There you go, Blender. There you go. So yeah, you know, I was inspired by that, and I thought, oh, well, let me try and figure out how to do that. Hey, great. Yeah, look, you know, go for it. Houdini's a wonderful software, so I encourage everybody to give it a go and get into VFX. It's really fun. So the first thing that I tried was path deform, which is a nice... Yeah, thanks, Francisco. well, yeah, I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with Blender or Maya. Really, it's been a long time since I've used them, but it did look a bit nicer than what Maya looks like. So the first one that I tried was Path Deform. So Path Deform, I think it's the Labs one that I'm using, which is a little bit better than the regular one. So Labs is a tool set within Houdini, which has some cool kind of features. So, you know, first off, I just tried drawing a curve and doing the Path Deform based on that. But it requires me to input a copy. So basically I first create a long line of tunnels, and this lets me decide how many I want, or how long I want that line of tunnels to be. And then I feed that into a Path Deform, which will deform them along that line. So if I decide I only want 2 along that line, then I get that. Let me template that line. And, you know, if I want more, if I want it to fill the line, I have to go and just keep increasing it. It gets pretty heavy because it's copying that geometry. It's not instancing. So it's getting up there in the poly count. But, you know, that's pretty cool. And it does deform them a little bit, which is good because you don't get a broken rotation. And they might be a little bent, although these have no subdivisions, so they're not going to bend really. They're just sort of bending here. So I think that's a pretty good way to go. Hello, thank you. So the other method that I thought I'd try was the copy to points method, which is a great method for doing any kind of scattering. And what I've done there is just I've moved the transform up to be sort of in line with or above my terrain, and I'm creating a bitangent, which is basically, if you have a look at the normals that are on there, they're sort of pointing outwards from the line, and I'm using that to orient my my pieces. So you can see if I change this to a different one, they orient incorrectly, but if I use the bitangent, they orient along the line. This method does give me the ability to instance these pieces, which means that it's very light. They're now packed on disk, so they're reading, they're sort of stored in memory, and it offloads all that geometry, and you can see the memory consumption is only kilobytes, whereas if I turn this off and we open up 900,000 polygons, the memory consumption is now much higher. So it's really efficient to do that, but it doesn't allow for deformation when you have packed geometry, and the copy to points doesn't allow for deformation either. So you can see there's overlapping, and on a really big bend, there is a gap. Now, at a distance, that probably doesn't matter too much. So it could be fine to do that. And if you didn't have such large bends, maybe it would be okay as well. But, you know, it's a consideration between the two. I think the Path Deform works pretty well. Now, here I have a ray. An array is kind of like how that terrain projection mask was working when I was doing the buildings, where I can basically position my line above the ground or below and just project it along a vector. And I'm just projecting it along Y, which is straight up and down, or straight up because it's positive. And that, you can see, snaps my line to the terrain. Now here I'm actually transforming it up again, so I'm moving it above the line. Let me take that out for now. I don't really remember why I was doing that. And then I do my copy to points. Oh, that's why. That's why I was transforming it, because after I stuck it to the grid with this method, the copy to points method, it changed the rotation. So I could fix that, but my way of fixing it was just to basically scale the Y by 0. So it removes any up and down changes, because that's going to mess with the normal. I suppose I could maybe do the polyframe first and then do the ray. I don't know. And then I moved it up. And what moving it up has done is moved it away from the ground. So these are floating now, which leads me to why I created this group. all the way back here, I grouped the feet and a bit of the pole there. And I thought, well, if these are floating, maybe I can just stick the feet and elongate these poles down to the ground so that no matter how high it is above the ground, they will just snap to the ground. So I'm using a ray again to do that. And I've got to turn off packed for this because this does not reveal any groups or access to points at all. There you go. So what this is doing now in this ray is just projecting. I'm projecting downwards this time, -1. And I'm only projecting the feet group down. So you can see that these sort of elongate just from that bottom section. And, you know, it's maybe a little wonky. The feet actually get super compressed because they were the closest. They get really compressed on the ground. And I haven't thought about a good way to fix this yet, but I sort of decided that maybe it doesn't matter because we probably won't see them anyway. But yeah, what it does give me the ability to do is to have this dynamic system where no matter how high this is off the ground, whether it's low or high, it will adapt to that ground and always be level and be connected. So it's a really simple, you know, thing. I could go and change the group if I wanted more of these legs, or if I wanted this mid section of the leg to come down as well. I could just go and adjust this group that I selected. Let's go to side view and grab that section as well. And then if we come down and have a look at our ray, we can see that the kind of well, interestingly, it just squashed all of that down as well. So may need to come up with some slightly more procedural way or like a bias to, you know, set by attribute or something to get that to work correctly. So that kind of works worse than what I was expecting. So I guess I'll go back to deselect those. But I'll have a think about that and how I could achieve that a little better. But yeah, like I said, it's probably not going to be seen, so it doesn't matter hugely to me that those feet are compressed. But now that this is working, I think this is potentially a good system. The path deform as well will work with this ray method because the group is present. So, you know, it will also work. We just need to make sure that this is, you know, the position of this is up and above the terrain. But if we then go and ray those, you can see that that's working. So show guide geometry off. There you go. So you can see how those are snapping. So you could do this with lots of the assets. If you chose the feet, or the things that are meant to be connected to the ground, and selected them, you could get them to ray onto the ground so that you maintain that connection no matter what the terrain is like. Alright, so that's the setup. Let's try and get this curve working a bit better with what we're trying to do. And what we are trying to do is find the top view. There we go. Can't see any details in the terrain, but if I merge this in like that, here's our community center, and here's our kind of, you know, we can see it based on the terrain details. Here's our landing pad, and we know that we have to kind of send a tunnel out this way and connect up to here. So what I might do is object merge in the buildings as well, just to make this easier. So I've got my community center and landing pad. So I'll select the community center first, and I'll add in another object for the landing pad. There we go. So we're going from here to here. So I'm going to I'm going to put a Bezier curve down, and I'm just going to click it out. And so I could sort of just come out straight and then make a turn like that. Or I could, you know, I could make it sort of curved if I wanted to. I'll probably, because of the length of the tunnel, what I'll do is sort of come out like this and then you know, try and keep it linear for a little bit, or perhaps I'll make it slightly more interesting around here. I can always change this afterwards, and then what I'm going to do is click it out here, and then I think sort of I'll end it there for this one. And let's go and plug that into the ray. Oops, wrong object. Wrong input. First input for the curve. There we go. So we can kind of see that there. Now, I don't have terribly many resample points on my curve here, so let me put it onto the convert. There we go. So you can see like it was sort of stretching across that gap. So not kind of, you know, not enough points, subdivisions. Because we start off with that. One, we convert it to a polygon, then we get that happening. We can resample it as well to get better distribution, but that should be okay. So we'll ray it to the surface. I will, let's see, I don't need to do this, I don't think, if I'm doing the path deform. Let's see what happens. Now, that's interesting. It's like a roller coaster. I hate to go down that tunnel. Interesting stuff going on here. So, you know, perhaps I will do the transform to squash it down, because it's, yeah, it's a little wacky. And I could, I suppose, just change this slightly so that you know, it doesn't completely squash it. I will also have to be mindful of how these connect up to the buildings that I'm, you know, trying to get them to merge to. So let's check out the position, the height of this tunnel, and I guess I'll template that. Yeah, so my tunnel is not quite lining up. Oh, the other thing, I need to come down 0.5 on this guy because my building is scaled down by 0.5. So I'm going to scale that down. That's why it sort of looks a little bit too large. And now I need more. Or my distance, I suppose, is halved. Let's try that. Halve that. 4.2. Hey, there we go. Alright, nice. That seems better. But I have to rise this up. So I'm going to just move this up. And I might... I'm just going to turn this number off, or set it to 1 so that it doesn't take a long time to update. And then I can quickly get it in line. And you can see, you know, that the copy is sort of placing it, basically the line starts there, but the copy is placing it in the center, the path deform is. I suppose what I could do is offset this. So if I offset it, I have to get the direction correct. But if I offset it down X, you can see it's starting to go into the path deform there, but I can sort of line it up with that tunnel. Let's just check it. It's getting a little twisted, which is interesting. Now if I go and increase my number, we'll see it go down, which is kind of cool. So it goes down the hill, and let's give it 8. And it's following my curve, so if I template my curve, we can sort of see it there. So let's go, give it 20. A few more. I suppose I could scale this as well if I wanted to, get less, but, you know, sort of have it elongate a little more. Let's try 25. There we go. Bit of a weird thing happening here with the because there are no subdivisions in this, you can see it's just it doesn't have any subdivisions that way. It's not going to go around corners terribly well. So perhaps what I should do there is put a junction in, or make it a curved corner would be better. So I might go back to my curve and let's see if I can turn this into a Bezier. Let's see, here we go. We've got make corner, smooth, balanced. So I'm gonna hit 2. There we go. So try and get this to come around. Make it a kind of smooth transition. And then I'll still go into a kind of junction point there. Let's see how that looks. Hey, there we go. That's a bit better. All right, cool. So there you go. You've got now, you know, something sticking kind of to the terrain, and I've got my ray. So you can see then the ray is just going to adapt those legs. Obviously, you know, in a tunnel, you probably want that tunnel to be mostly flat. So the legs, adjusting the legs is, you know, what you would imagine they would do. But now we need to work out how we're going to connect up to this building. I probably need to get my curve to be a bit closer. So let's adjust that. Oh, maybe I haven't copied enough pieces. So yeah, I need to get closer, but I also need to copy more pieces. So I'm going to go 28. As you know, it is getting heavy now, so you know, this path to form method is kind of intensive. Just make sure I don't have duplicate at the end. No. Okay, 28. And I'm going to bring in my junction point as well, because I'm going to manually place that, I think. Let's go and find it in the thing here. So we've got tunnels. Waiting for my slow hard drive. Oh, there it is. Nice. So we've got those. We've got a little connector, and then we've got the double tunnel there. So I'm just gonna grab this and copy it in. And scale it down. Okay. And we want to put this guy sort of here. Guess I'll line it up with this one. Just doing it by eye. Could use a snap to do it, but that'll be alright. And I'm going to just offset it like that, because I want it to kind of line up roughly with my tunnel. There we go. So that's where that now is lined up to go straight out there to connect up with my building. I will probably need to also get the height of that lined up so that it's lined up with the tunnel that's there. So let's go to side view. And there are 2 tunnels here, so we could pick the lower one or the upper one. I don't know which one is better. Let's just go with the upper one. Yeah, I guess we'll go with the upper one for now. And we actually need to move our tunnel, drop our tunnel line down quite a lot. So I might do that here in an edit before the path to form, and just edit that one, or those points. I'm going to edit here. So there we go. Let's Might take that template off and turn that one on. And I'm going to turn on soft settings for the edit so that when I transform this, it sort of moves multiple points. Let's get it happening. There we go. So something like that. And if I adjust that, you can see it sort of come down. Who knows where this is in terms of the terrain, but we can adjust the terrain afterwards. So hopefully that will be okay. And what I might do is turn off my soft radius now and try and flatten some of these guys down a little bit so that we end up with a straight line at the end. Alright, let's see what happens. And because there's an offset here between the height of the tunnel and the curve, what should I do? I suppose I can move this down so that it lines up more with the curve. Yeah, I guess I'll do that. Let's see. Template that, move it down. That didn't seem to do anything. Hey, thanks. It's getting there. You know, this stuff is quite time consuming. But you know, it's hard to do anything much in 2 hours, especially when you're talking. But yeah, you know, it's gonna get there. And I will do a bit of work after the stream as well, between now and the next stream, to try and, you know, get this stuff a little more fleshed out, and then, you know, then we can do something cool to it. So what I want to do is move this down now to line up with this. There's a little bit of fiddling now, you know, my sort of semi-procedural approach. Perhaps I only need to do a little bit. Oh, there we go. Try a little bit more. And, you know, because of the little procedural things that I do have, I only have to concern myself with lining this up. The terrain I know can adapt, because I can use this as a mask to adapt my terrain to where this is, but I also know that I can ray my, you know, legs to the surface finally. So there we go, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't know what that has done for back here, so we may need to make an adjustment back here as well. So let's just template our building here. Yeah, so we need to, oh, it's getting messy now with these edits. I probably should have thought of this from the start, but I will move this up as well to line up. I guess I could move the building down, that would be easier. But yeah, I'll just move this up. I'll show you something I was playing around with earlier, a few weeks ago, actually. Oh, look at that. That I think could be turned into a nice tool for this stuff, but I sort of, you know, I just didn't have the time to flesh it out completely. Yeah, good question, KitBash. I think, yeah, hopefully this does inspire you guys to try out some interesting approaches to this stuff, and, you know, get some stuff conforming to terrain. There we go. That's not working too badly. Just need a bit more soft radius. I really like doing this stuff. It's not something that I do all that often, being a effects artist. I'm not ever usually responsible for doing scene creation and modeling. It's a completely different department in film, but it's a lot of fun. I'm just gonna move this over in screen space. Hopefully that doesn't break too much. Hey, Mikkel. Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, look, I think, the scene layout is incredibly time consuming. And I think once we set these things up and, work out the nuts and bolts of how things are going to work, everything subsequently takes a lot less time. It's just the initial sort of stuff of working out how you're going to do these things, how you're going to get everything to line up, and how you're going to create a system for laying things out. I've chosen not to show you the kind of super easy things like scattering, copying assets, which actually I probably will show you. But yeah, I've tried to kind of attack some of the more kind of complicated ideas for laying these things out. I'm going to take this guy over here and line it up to our little T intersection. So if I apply the same transform here to this, I should get it roughly in the same place. There we go. So now if I line this up, and take off that scale because it's already been scaled. If I line this up to here, now I can sort of move this across, so I can get that lining up, and hopefully it'll roughly line up with my doorway. And I'm actually going to use a copy and transform here, so if I use that and offset it down X, I can just create a little connector like that, and there we go. It's pretty good. A little bit off, so I suppose I could move it down a little bit, and I could do that here if I wanted to just create a little stepped tunnel. I might just do that for speed because I don't want to keep boring you guys with this stuff too much. I might just create a little stepped on there. It's probably not the best, and I should fix it. I probably will fix it after, but let's take a look at that. So if I get rid of that guy, there we go. And we've got a junction now where we could send that off onto other things, but now we have this nice connection, which is, connecting to the environment as well. So if we have a look out here, let's see, I will just look at that one. That's right, hit save and turn on my tunnels. There we go. Don't even have to do anything with the environment. I do need to make this guy conform though, so if we go and just do the same thing, very easy, just select the feet, type group those points, just call it feet again, and copy this ray, and there we go. I do need to work out how to get that better, and we do the same thing with this one as well. So we could actually I guess this one already has the feet group. I think it should, depending on where I took it from. Nope, take it from there. Now we'll copy it, do the same thing. There we go. So we got them all sticking to the ground now. And if we jump out, there we go. We got a connection between two buildings. Hooray! So now that I've come up with that, probably wouldn't take me too much time to do the rest, but, it might take me a couple of hours to do it all. Yeah, in terms of basic copying and scattering, you can use, within the height field, there are some distribution things that you can do. But I like to just use, a general scatter and copy to points is a really good way of copying things. So if I object merge in here, and let's grab the terrain. So I'll grab the terrain mesh. It's pretty dense. It's like 4 million polys. We don't necessarily need it to be this dense for the copying, but I'm just going to scatter some points onto this. And hey, thanks, sure. And by default now in Houdini, the scatter has a relax on it, which is cool. I just wish it wasn't on by default, because it sort of gives you a not very organic distribution of points. It tries to average. It's doing a blur based on point cloud, if you're familiar with that stuff. So it's averaging the point positions, which gives a very ordered look. You can see, you know, they're all kind of evenly spaced out. So I'm going to turn that off for now. And let's go and choose something to add here. And we'll have a look at the props. So I guess we could scatter small buildings if we wanted to. I mean, you know, it might not be a bad idea to scatter some small buildings around. And you'll notice that I've got all these identifiers, so I could potentially use that. If I merged all these together and created a null and just say out small buildings, these are all packed, so they're all just single geometry. Their points and primitives are not exposed. There's quite a lot of things here. If I do out small buildings and then go back to my little scatter geo here and object merge that. So here it is here, out small buildings. So there are 10 pieces in there. Using the copy to points, geometry to copy is first input, target points, second input. You can vary the copy based on an attribute. The attribute has to be present on both. So we already have this attribute here, and it's actually not promoted. So I'm going to, actually let me see if I can just unpack. I was going to turn off the pack on all those, but it might be easier just to unpack everything. Hopefully it's not too heavy. It's only 2 million polygons. What was I worried about? Ident, there it is there. So that is different for each one of those buildings. If I have the same thing on this side, I will be able to line them up. So, you know, if I have a point with ident 1 on it, and this has an ident 1, then it will find that. Now, what I just realized is that because of the way that I did this ident stuff, it's probably not going to work too well, because these are sort of a bit random, and it's going to be hard for me to assign those point numbers like that to the scatter. So what I might do is leave them packed like that, and then give them an attribute on their packed geometry based on how many pieces we have. So if I do an attribute wrangle here and just say at ident, I could make a new one. I could call it whatever, instance or something. At instance equals at pt num, and pt num is the number of the point. It's I. Hopefully it won't error. There we go. So it's an integer value, and if we have a look at the geometry spreadsheet in Houdini, which is where all the data is displayed, this is the point number on the left, and this is the attribute that we just created, and you can see they're the same. So it'll probably just, depending on the order that the buildings were merged in, that will be the first one and the second one, etc. And because they're packed, they're just single points. Each building is represented as a point. So we've got 10, and it starts at 0 when it does the count from pt num. So the first one is actually 0 and the last one is 9. Now we need the same thing over here. So using the attribute wrangle, I can say at instance, I need the same attribute, so it's an integer, I at instance, equals rand at ptnum. Now, looking at the spreadsheet, that's going to give me a value. It's complaining because... okay. So, if I remove this I, it's complaining because it's trying to do a random from an integer. I think that's why it's complaining. Yes, it's saying no matching function for rand int. If I set that to f instead, it will force it to evaluate as a float. So there it is there. And you can see that it's running between 0 and 1, essentially. 0.9999. Random only outputs 0 to 1 values, so we have to change them somehow. Now, what I do is I put it in a fit. And depending on the number of points that I have over here, I can output a different value. So actually you can use a fit 0, 1 because we know that random outputs 0 to 1 already. So that just leaves you with having to put the new minimum and new maximum. I'm not going to go in depth into how the fit works here, but basically it takes a range of numbers and it will refit them to a different range. So it'll scale them accordingly, keeping them relative, but scaling them. So I'm going to output this between 0 and 9. Because that's what we saw as our values on the other side. And you can see now, we've got values between 0 and 9, roughly. But it's a float, and over here we've got an integer value. So we need to convert it to an integer. So we're just going to say I at instance equals fit01. Now it's giving us a little warning. It's saying that some data is being lost. It's an implicit cast from float to int. So it's throwing away some of the data, which potentially will end up with a not accurate result. But it's working, so I'm not really fussed by that. What I am fussed about is that it is outputting, because I've rounded to an integer, it's outputting from 0, but the final number is 8, because it's rounded down. So what I do to fix that is just to add an extra number, and then it's going to round down to 9, which is what I need. So now I have instance, a random value for each point is going to get, I'm going to get some with, if I sort by point number, you can see they're all different for each point. 0, 5, 6. Now if we have a look at our copy to points, what we're going to get is it not working because we need to enable it here. Piece attribute, instance. Hey, there we go, look. So we got different buildings depending on which one got that random value. And there's a lot, it's pretty heavy. So if I zoom out, it's starting to turn these into bounding boxes because this is a lot of data that we're displaying in the viewport right now. There's 1,000 points, so there's 1,000 buildings. So we could do something like that instead, where we just scatter 100 of these little assets all over the terrain. We could also scale them differently if we really wanted to. There's no rotation on this stuff either, so we could do something like an attribute randomize. You can do this in Vex as well, of course. There you go, we're randomizing color, but we could randomize rotation. Rotation is a 4-dimensional vector, and you can see we're rotating them off axes now, but if we set X and Z to 0, we're now going to get rotation around Y only. So we can get random rotation. Attribute adjust integer will do it also. Yeah, great. Thanks, Mohammed. Lots of ways to do things in Houdini. Yeah, many different ways to do the same thing in Houdini. Some are easier than others, and yeah, but that's good. Thank you. So now, if we take a look at our terrain, we kind of have a look at where these are. They're sort of positioned on top, and we may need to do a little work on our terrain to get these to line up properly. But, there we go. We could also do something interesting with our terrain where we, now we could do this on the height field as well, but we could also do it here where we measure the curvature or the, there are many aspects that we could measure here. You can see even the area has given us an interesting sort of result where the tops do seem to be, kind of highlighted as opposed to the cliffs. But we could use something like curvature. Let's see what that gives us. It's pretty slow because this is very heavy, heavy terrain. So we could also remesh this terrain, or indeed we could polyreduce it as well. I like using polyreduce. It's a pretty cool node for reducing assets. It does a good job at preserving features. It probably will take a little while to initialize on such a heavy asset, but once it has, then you can kind of go, I want to keep 10% of the polygons. So we got 4 million polygons going in. If we take it down to 10%, it'll do its thing. You can see the little percentage down here, so it's going. It's going to take a little while, but reducing it to 10% may speed up this whole scatter process. We may, maybe I might have been a bit overzealous in doing that, but hopefully it'll be a bit faster to work with. We could always go back to the height field and downsample as well. There's lots of ways. As I said, there are lots of ways of doing the same thing in Houdini, so there are potentially multiple ways that you could do this. Some would be more efficient than others. This is probably inefficient, but it's quick-ish to do. So yeah, there we go. Almost there. Has anybody got any questions? What are we at? We're on not long to go, about less than 10 minutes to go. There we go. So you can see now it's a much more manageable mesh, and I can still use the measure, and the measure will be much faster. A lot of the fine details have gone, but I can sort of, play around with these settings to try and isolate an area. I can also, play around with different measure types. It may actually be better for me to go back to the height field and do this, because what I'm getting here is not really what I was hoping for. I could also, potentially do something in an attribute VOP just based on height. Relative bounding box is a great node to use, or expression to use in Vex as well. I like to do this stuff in VOPs sometimes, just if I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. This is giving me a 0 to 1 value based on basically these values, like the size values. So if I put a vector to float down to get X, Y, and Z separate, you can see I get a black and white mask. If I output that from Y, it gives me the depth. So if I then run that into a fit or a ramp, let's run it into a ramp, output spline ramp. And now I can sort of create a mask. This is just based on height. It's not based on curvature or anything, but I could use this to just mask the tops of my terrain. And then I could feed that directly into a scatter as density, but I actually like to blast those areas away first, because I find the density sometimes doesn't always work exactly how I want. Delete non-selected. So, now I've got just those tops, which I can scatter onto, and that's going to give me, things positioned in maybe a more logical way than if I was just scattering on the whole thing. So then if I go and, merge those together with the terrain, I might see that they're just sitting on the sort of topmost sections. So that works quite well. There's obviously, there's room for improvement in terms of laying that out. And, as we've seen, I can go and adjust the terrain to accommodate that stuff. Or, get the legs to ray down. Could be another method there. But that's just going to give me, background buildings. nice and easy, and I can change the way that I'm doing the randomization. I can add a number to PT num to get a different seed, and I'll get a different distribution of buildings. Play with scale, you know, there's all sorts of things that you could do there. Mohammed, does avoiding Vex when possible make me a bad effects artist? No, it doesn't. I mean, I think there are lots of good things that you can do in Vex and do quickly. But there are lots of things that you can do in VOPs and that are actually easier to do in VOPs than Vex. Noise, for instance. Noise is really sort of annoying to do in Vex because you're trying to do all these different parameters, and it can be really hard to sort of manage. And if you want to do multiple noises, it becomes a bit of a nightmare. So I like doing that. Ramps and, you know, any kind of color and visual based stuff I like doing in here. I just find it easier. Also, if I don't know exactly what I'm doing, I'll do it in VOPs first and then maybe convert it to Vex if I want to make it a bit more efficient. But it really doesn't matter, you know. The Vex will come as you learn. I just avoided Vex, you know, completely when I was first starting out. I'm not sort of programming language savvy, and yeah, it's something, you know, that took me time to get used to. But now that I'm used to it, I just use it where necessary, and I use it to add little bits here and there. I won't write big long walls of code because I just don't like doing that. But I don't think it makes you a bad effects artist. Everyone works differently, and, you know, I know plenty of senior effects artists that don't really use Vex. So Mikkel, got lost with height fields. What are they exactly? Well, they're a volume, really. They're a really kind of good way of creating very high detail surfaces. So it utilizes the cool volume tools within Houdini, and basically it's a huge set of tools that you can use to generate a terrain. And then right at the end, there's a very easy way to just convert it to a mesh if you need to. Convert height field, polygon, you know, you can just convert it to another volume. You could export that. But yeah, basically it's a way of creating terrains using lots of different options for creating the shapes. I'm starting off by using one of the textures that KitBash provided, which is cool that you can do that in a height field file. I didn't know that was possible until I tried. So yeah, you know, it's a terrain generation toolset essentially, and then you can finally just convert it and output it. You can also, because it's a volume, so you can see here 2 volumes, and there are volume related attributes. These are all to do with visualization, so they're not particularly important. Here's our resolution, and our height and mask volumes. So you can resample to make it more detailed or less detailed if you want. Oh, here's that one we cropped based on the mask earlier. But if I wanted that to be more detailed, I never know which way it is, whether it's a scaling factor. So 0.5 would be less detailed. There we go. So I can downsample it and then export that as my scatter surface. Yeah, that's probably a better way to do it. Or you can add more detail to increase the level of detail, so that when you add a really detailed noise, maybe, you can see more of the finer details in it. There are also really, really cool tools in height field, which are like erosion, and you know, there's some cool kind of simulation type things that you can do, which will generate water and create, you know, create kind of rivers and, you know, things like that, which are super cool. So if I set freeze at frame 20, it will go and run the simulation up to frame 20 and then just bake that in. Fingers crossed it doesn't crash. It can be slow on a really detailed mesh, so it may be too slow here to run. Bake point color, yeah, well that's right. If you create a texture and then display it on your height field, you can get it displayed on your mesh as point colors. Yeah, cool. So yeah, with this one, I'm just using the texture that was provided with the KitBash material. So I've got UVs on this. I don't know what's happening there. I think I'm maybe seeing multiple things here. But this one has a material on it, so I don't know what I must have done something here to make this break, but it does have a material on it, which does look cool. So I'm gonna have to wrap it up. Sadly, I could keep going, and I feel like I haven't really accomplished a lot. But hopefully I've shown you guys some cool things that you can try, and I'd love to see if you do end up working on this stuff. I'd love to see what you come up with, and I hope you join me for the next stream, because that is going to be a lot of fun. That's kind of what I love doing, and I look forward to doing some kind of effect. I don't know what it's going to be exactly, but I feel like an explosion is in order, and some sort of destruction. But I'm going to work on this a little bit, and I'll show you guys what I did in the break between the streams, and I think there'll be a blog post about it as well. But you'll get to see the kind of things that I added, and I might do some more animation, I don't know. Is it possible to work with height field in a sphere or box instead of a plane? No, it's not, I don't believe. It is just a two-dimensional thing, and that's what makes it so powerful and efficient, because it is just working as a very thin two-dimensional volume. I don't believe you can do that on anything else. But you can do the texture stuff. The one that I'm using, the texture map, you could apply that to any surface. So you could do it a slightly different way, and then you could use whatever. You just couldn't do it with a height field, I think. Yeah, there you go. 1.11 says height fields are 2D. So yeah, there is a link for both, a link to KitBash on the description. There is the coupon code if you want to get a 35% discount on those kits. And there is another stream on the 21st, which is the link is already up. So if you check the CG Spectrum YouTube, you'll see it in there. And yeah, I hope you guys can join me for the next one. If not, it will be recorded. This one will be recorded and posted, so it will be available to rewatch if you want to. And yeah, look, I've really enjoyed taking you through it. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's been nice to be back. Nice to see some familiar people again. If you're interested in any of the courses, or coming and learning Houdini effects with CG Spectrum, we have courses here at CG Spectrum that we teach. So we have a foundations course where you can learn the basics, but not just the basics, effects and simulation and all that stuff. We also have an advanced course, which is a full course taking you through the more advanced simulation topics, very focused on film visual effects. And it's working with a mentor, like someone like me or one of our other Houdini effects mentors. So we take you through the whole course, usually 101 or in a small class. So it's quite a cool environment to learn this stuff in. But yeah, great. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Check out the Minerva contest on KitBash3D.com if you haven't. Download the kit and get making. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Thank you for joining me, everybody. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye, everybody.